let's get into our full spoiler review of Creed 3. Now,
Yes.
I would like to open by just saying I'm so thankful for the Creed movies that there's only been 3 of them since 2015.
Yes.
Because as soon as the new one comes out, you realize that, like, oh, yeah, Creed movies, they're good.
Yeah, they gave us some time to miss it, to want to anticipate it. It wasn't kind of this rushed back to back to back to back kind of release. Like they
No,
were very spread
wise.
out. They were very spread out. We took time to kind of miss these characters a little bit and then get back into it. So, and I was glad I had time to kind of do a Creed little rewatch before going into this movie so I could kind of remember where these characters were. Really disappointing to have this whole kind of dispute happening with the character of Rocky and the rights to Rocky, so that, Stallone very much is kind of not wanting to be a part of that if he doesn't have kind of full ownership of the character and things like that.
Yeah.
But I think, and I hope it's nothing between him and Michael B. Jordan, because, I think
I doubt it is.
I would doubt it is. I think it's more just kind of the producers who own the rights and this whole kind of dispute. So
Because,
that
let's not forget Stallone. Rocky is entirely Stallone's creation. Stallone wrote Rocky.
exactly. Yes. Yes. So I mean, I think working within that boundary of not having Rocky there, I think they were able to still craft a great story. I think, um, even kind of watching 2 before going into 3, they set it up really well that Rocky's kind of living his own life. By the end of 2, he's
Yeah,
reconciled with his son
yeah,
and all of that. So, it makes sense. He's kind of with his family and trying to figure things out, a very difficult relationship with his son and working on that. And, they very much set him up as somebody, who, he's in Philadelphia. That's his home. He's not somebody who's really going to be traveling a lot. He's older now than he was even in the movies that kind of portrayed the past movies that portrayed him as old.
yeah.
So,
Even
it all makes
Rocky Balboa portrayed him as old, and that was nearly
yeah, right.
20 years ago.
Many years before all of this. So I liked kind of having that refresher to remind me that they do set up Rocky really well to make sense that he's kind of dealing with his own things, and it would make sense that, um, Adonis is in LA doing kind of his thing and thriving, and it's been years since, he's fought, he's doing this retirement match, and then now a couple years have passed since that. Um, so kind of getting to see how Rocky's story closed out into it worked for where they went with this story, and I think they really kind of used that. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, so I while I would have loved to see him, I think they made it make sense why he wasn't there. So I liked that.
they did, and I think there was still there's always going to be enough past franchise, past movie series elements in a new Creed movie, for you to realize the universe it's in. They
Yeah.
still talk about Rocky. His name is still mentioned in the
Yeah.
movie.
And Apollo and everything, that's
Apollo's
still a
all
huge part of
over
that.
those
Yeah.
movies. Still, he's his influence. Apollo's influence is still a massive part, even though obviously Adonis never knew Apollo.
Yeah.
He's still a massive part of the mindset of a lot of characters in these movies.
Yeah.
And obviously, Drago comes back into, Drago
Yeah.
Jr. comes back in this movie. He's Drago Jr. That's what he is. Who, I mean, in Creed 2, I enjoyed Creed 2. I don't think Creed 2's anywhere near as strong as the first movie or this movie.
Yeah.
I think Creed 3 is a really, really wonderful movie. I think a lot of it hinges on your central
kind of
character
between,
conflict. It
yeah.
does, and the real personal element to that. We'll get into that because it's so strong. But it's nice to have, because the Rocky movies have always done this, had previous. I mean, look at what even Apollo did in Rocky 3. Apollo comes, oh, you're my big rival, Rocky, you know, and all this. Oh, okay, I'll
Yeah.
train you now. Let's have a run on the beach and a dance in the sea with each other.
Dance in the sea. Yeah.
That's what they do. They
I
dance
know,
in the sea with
essentially.
each other. They might as well have held each other's hands and
In
skipped
their cute
along the
little
beach together.
primary colored outfits.
It's ridiculous, but
Yeah.
it's great.
Mhm.
You know, former rivals coming to help train
Yeah, so I like
for a
Drago kind
new
of
fight, and you get
coming
that with
back and that
Drago
helpful.
Jr.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. Um, and I think there was a cut scene even as well that like, Creed goes to his dressing room and they kind of have a moment together, um, kind of working things out after the fight, but they cut that. So, I
Oh, in
think there
Creed
was
2, you mean?
yes, so I think there was an
Ah,
idea to have them kind of make peace with each other. So, um, getting to kind of see that in this movie, I think was really nice. My
yeah,
one, like, I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it looked great. I think it's a great, job for Michael B. Jordan. He said he was definitely inspired by Ryan Coogler to see someone kind of from the same place as him,
yeah,
someone kind of the same age as him, having a vision and really being able to execute things and be such a brilliant director really inspired him. And you see that like he definitely puts his own style on it. I love kind of his anime inspiration in terms of how he's going to do the fight scenes, because you can watch a million fight scenes in boxing movies and they all kind of have very similar things happening. So to kind of bring this unique kind of style to it,
yes,
and really call out and put shine a light on anime and the great style of that genre, and take that as inspiration, because I think a lot of things also do take inspiration from anime but don't really credit it. um I think it gave us some really cool visuals that, just to set it apart from so many boxing movies that feel very much kind of similar in terms of their fight scenes.
yeah, and I
So
think
he has a great visual kind of mind. And it was great to see that from his first time. But my one criticism, I think, because I really enjoyed this movie. I was very kind of on the edge of my seat, tense, freaking out, like what's gonna happen? Oh no, I don't like this. Like even when you kind of know where it's probably gonna end up. But the
this
one
is the
thing,
beauty of
yes,
Rocky movies, Rocky Creed movies.
you
They're
still feel
so
that stress.
obvious as to what's going to happen. They're so obvious as to how things are
Yeah,
going to end, but they're so great at emotional manipulation. They are
yes,
perfect at it
it's
every
still so
single
tense.
goddamn time. You end up with
But
tears in your eyes at the end. Every
yes,
single
every
movie,
time. But yeah, my
apart from
one
Rocky
criticism is the
5.
fact that like this conflict is kind of the crux. Yeah, this conflict is the crux of the film. It's the big thing. It's these great kind of titan actors kind of coming at each other, and the twist of Damien's deception and all of that. But it only kind of plays in that pool for a very short time before jumping into the fight. I wish we would have sat with Damien's kind of manipulation and the rivalry and the anger between the two of them. I wish we would have, Creed's on a show and Damien's calling in talking shit about him. Like I wish we would have sat in the buildup of this kind of tension back and forth for a little bit longer. It just was like, you know, the betrayal happens. Damien, reveals who he really is. They kind of have these back and forths, and then the fight happens, and then we get our
Not
training,
that,
and the
not
fight
that,
happens. I just
not that.
wanted
By the way,
more of
Damien
that dynamic.
isn't Damien. It's like you saying Damien reveals who he is. He's like, "Aha!
No,
I'm
well, I
not
mean,
Damien at all. I'm
no,
your father." Take off
I
my
mean,
mask.
you know what? You know it.
I do know what you mean.
I
Yes,
mean,
I do.
like, and then like Duke could tell the whole time that he has this kind of grudge against the world, but I mean, revealing his true kind of motivations
Yes.
to Creed, and Creed being blinded by his guilt to really kind of see that, because it's pretty obvious, but because he has that guilt he's dealing with, he doesn't allow himself to see it. So I loved all of that. I just wanted to sit with Damien being the antagonist directly to Creed once that all that kind of is revealed, his part in rigging his spot and all of that. I wanted to sit with that a little bit longer and see these two great actors kind of really build up the anger, so that when we went into this final fight, it would have felt even more aggressive, more stakes, more just kind of like, tough and more difficult. Um, but I felt like they kind of just rushed past the conflict a little too fast, and then we went into training montage and fight. You know?
I don't disagree. I don't disagree. I do think the very confrontational scenes we do get, although like you said, they're somewhat limited. The phone in when
Yeah, I
Adonis
think we
goes on
pretty much
to
just get the phone
Stephen A.
in.
Smith's show.
We get the
Well,
phone in.
there's
We get the beach scene, and that's like all we get.
yes,
And we
yes,
do.
that's all
They
we get
allude to the
of
fact.
direct
Yes, and
conflict.
we allude to the fact that when he's on the show, the host is kind of saying he's been all through the news saying all these things about you, and we didn't see any of that. Why not have us see him kind of going around telling the story of their youth, really trying to damage his name, people like not maybe wanting to come to the gym or leaving to side with Damien or things like that, just to really build up, Damien really kind of trying to shit on Creed's legacy on top of antagonizing him, on top of, trying to strip away his good name and all of the, I really wish we would have just gotten more of this kind of contention between the two of them once Damien really kind of shows his true colors fully to Creed.
Like I said, I don't disagree. And what you say, I mean, we could have had a montage of Damien going around, talking all this, whatever, on Adonis to a bunch of people. And that could have taken 2 minutes of time, 90 seconds of time of the movie, if it was a montage, a well-edited montage. And I think you would have felt that much more if we'd had have got something like that. And it doesn't need to take so much
time away. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All I would say is that the scenes we do get of the direct confrontation, that beach scene, that phoning scene, I think work really well. I think are still very, very effective. Very, very tough for Adonis in particular, not really for Damien. Damien's the one antagonizing the whole situation.
Yeah.
Damien being Jonathan Majors. But I almost feel like the ending of the movie, how do you word it? The reconciliation, as it were, after your final fight. You know how these movies are structured. There's a big final fight between Adonis and Damien at the end of the movie. Let's punch each other and, end up okay with each other in the end. Because there is that reconciliation at the end. There's the you understand, there's the understanding that in the near future, after this movie is finished and potentially in a potential Creed 4, that I don't think we've got any news or indication of anything like that at all.
No.
But that, that Damien would be welcome and friendly with the Creed.
Oh no, I actually think I did see an interview where somebody asked him if there's going to be more Creed things, and he said yes.
I would
But I
assume
can't
there
say
is.
much about it now.
Yeah,
So
I would assume there is. But the ending reconciliation with Damien and the obvious likelihood.
and him taking accountability for his part in things. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't think. I think that would have felt too easy had we gotten more antagonistic behavior within the movie from Damien than we did anyway. I think we got just enough to understand that really Damien's just messed up in his own head because of what's happened anyway. He blames Adonis for everything. And what this is, by the way, for those who haven't watched the movie but are watching a spoiler review of the movie, listening to it, is there was Adonis and Damien, Michael B. Jordan and Jonathan Majors grew up in the world of the movie before Adonis knew who he was. Before Adonis knew he was Apollo Creed's son and all this business. They spent some time in a group home, like a foster home situation,
Yeah.
by the sounds of it. And the leader of the foster home was a incredibly evil man by all accounts, who beat them.
Yes.
And they get a little bit older. Adonis is with Mama Creed
Yeah.
now, as we like to refer to her. But Damien's still his friend. Mama Creed doesn't like Damien at all.
Yes, she feels like
Um,
he's just a bad part of his past, a bad influence.
but they are still friends, and they're good boxers. So, they go to
Yeah.
these kind of underground boxing
Underground fights,
matches.
and Damien is great. Yeah.
Damien's a great
Great
boxer. We
potential
see
to, yeah. He
the
kind of
opening of the
outlines, yeah, he outlines his whole plan of, like, he wants to go pro and all of these things, and
yeah
um
go to the
yeah.
Olympics. The
Yeah.
opening of the movie tells us all this. The opening of the movie is in their childhoods, their
Yeah.
teenage years. And that it's a really great way, I think, of opening this movie, because, like we say, the entire movie, really, the crux of the entire movie, the emotion of the entire movie, is built
Yeah.
upon the relationship between the two of them. So, of
Yeah.
course, we open by learning the beginnings of the relationship between the two of them to get where we are for the majority of the movie.
Yeah.
It's a really great opening, and I've now forgotten what my point was. Entirely forgotten what my point was.
Well, I think it was just kind of not a counter, but just another perspective on what I was saying about my criticism of um not building up the tension enough, and you thinking that, had they done it more, it would have been tougher to sell the reconciliation, I think.
Correct. That's exactly what I was going to say. Yes. In summary, I think it would have been. I think it would have felt too easy. Like, oh, what? You're okay now? What about all that stuff you were saying about me that we saw half an hour ago in the movie? Damien, we're supposed to be
Yes.
okay now.
I would have
You would have
loved,
felt like that, and I like that. I like that the reconciliation works, and I think it only works because we only saw some of Damien's vitriol against Adonis.
but I think, Jonathan Majors is an amazing actor. I think he
He
definitely could have
is.
played it where, you see him doing all of this lashing out, and you could see him doing it and kind of turning away from a camera and, having a pained face or a tear welling up in his eye or something to sell that, like, this is call coming from a place of just lashing out, of not wanting to take responsibility and pain. And, I wanted to feel that a little bit more than I did. And I know Jonathan Majors is capable of that. So
Oh, absolutely,
selling it
absolutely.
more from this kind of cocky place and less from a more, like, pained place, I think I wanted it to feel more like that. And I think I got a little bit of that, but I think I wanted maybe a little bit more of that to really heighten because I was already kind of stressed on this fight, but I think
Yeah,
I would have maybe felt even more had we felt this kind of angry regret a little bit more.
yeah.
I just needed a little bit more from all of that.
I think that is what makes Damien such a great character, though, because he, he's not just being nasty for the sake of being nasty. He's got real motivation behind him
Yes.
to do what he's doing in this movie. He's been in
And they
prison for
set that
18
up really
years.
well. So
Beautifully well.
even though I didn't see kind of as much of it as I wanted, they sold it enough in the beginning in their story, that, I felt that. I felt, his true motivations and his true kind of feelings. I think I just wanted to see it more in the later side of the film.
Yeah, but you can also feel that they still would, be friendly with each other. They still kind of
Once they kind
get
of
on
got
with
this out of
each
their
other. They
system
they
and
have.
and face their part in the whole conflict. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not even at the end of the movie. during the build-up of the movie, kind of when you first meet Damien, and they go out for that lunch, and Damien first comes around to the house to meet Tessa Thompson. Hi, Tessa, by the way. That's what my caption is today. This is my poor attempt at getting Tessa Thompson's attention, as I'm often trying to do. No. But she, he comes round to the house and meets, his family. He gets invited to Bianca's music event.
Yeah.
He invited to the gym, and yes, Duke, little Duke, as he's referred to, because he's not Big Duke. No more Big Duke. That's sad, isn't it?
Yeah.
I like Duke, the original Duke. I like new
the damn
Duke
towel.
Well. Yes, we like original Duke. We like both Dukes.
Yes.
But you feel...
Sorry, that's like my favorite line delivery.
It's so extreme. It's throw
the damn towel.
It's so over the top. It's wonderful. Yes. Rocky IV.
Yeah.
But you feel that there is semblances of a friendship there, even though from Damien's point of view, it's kind of all being faked a little bit.
Yeah.
Not entirely, but he obviously has his selfish motivation.
Yes.
So I like that. I like that, and I like that I can believe that reconciliation at the end. But I don't disagree with that whole point, and I think that's brought a really great conversation about this movie. I did want to mention as well the fighting that you said anime-influenced fight scenes in this movie.
That kind of final fight when the whole audience
this final fight,
and this focus on the two of them and the visuals of the bars and all these kinds of elements kind of coming in, and them seeing each other as their teenage selves, and the whole kind of visual cues and visual interest kind of happening in this final fight, I think was really cool.
Now, I've no knowledge at all of anime, really. You have. I had no idea this was anime based at all, but I was blown away by this final fight in how, I mean, you just don't think. You think of, the final fight in the Rocky Creed movies as being structurally always pretty similar to one another.
Yes, I mean, back to back, watching two Creed movies back to back. Literally, the fights go, one person's doing really well, then another person kind of comes in and does a little bit, then another person's doing really well, then somebody's not doing well, and you don't know how it's going to go. This fight, I loved that both of them were just like on the same level, hitting each other back and forth, so you really had no idea where it was going to go.
Yeah.
Because most of the fights have one person kind of always leading, and then your underdog kind of comes in and does damage. This fight had them both toe-to-toe, head-to-head, face-to-face, getting licks and hits in all at the same time.
It's because there's no real underdog to this fight, and there usually always is. You think about let's go through the Rocky movies. In Rocky, obviously Rocky's the underdog. In Rocky 2, Rocky's still kind of the underdog. Rocky 3, I think, is the exception, and that's where I want to bring my point in. Rocky 4, Rocky's the underdog.
Yeah.
Rocky 5 doesn't have a fight because it's a weird movie. Rocky Balboa, Rocky's the underdog.
He's the underdog.
Creed 1, Adonis is the underdog. Creed 2, oh no, Drago Jr. this time.
Yeah.
Adonis is the underdog again. Mm-hmm. Their third movies are very, very similar. Because Damien's the closest thing we have to Clubber Lang in terms of they're just toe-to-toe with each other. He's just one's quite mouthy and one's quite quiet.
Yeah.
There's not much shouting. You don't get much. When you do get Adonis kind of exploding a little bit because he's bottled all these feelings up. He's
Yeah, I
bottled his
love kind
past
of
up. He's
the
bottled these stories up. There's
yes.
serious emotion there. You feel it watching that you don't want to see Adonis like this because he's never been like this.
No, yes, I
Protagonists
love that
in
we
these
get a bit
movies.
of kind of a mental health crisis with him in terms of him just bottling up emotions and not being able to talk about things and kind of hiding past traumas, and Bianca just wanting to talk to him about it so she can, and she's like literally saying it, I just want to talk to you so I can understand you and I can understand what you're going through. And he immediately kind of goes to this place, kind of reverting back to who he was at the beginning as a child, just constantly
Yeah,
fighting, constantly being angry, lashing out. That, you know, why do you want to hear this? So you can pity me and feel sorry for me? And
yeah.
she's like, no.
No, you
So
idiot.
yeah,
Slap.
so I love
Doesn't
that,
slap
you
because
know,
slapping.
on top of yes, on top of the guilt he feels about Damien, on top of the layers of that, we're also getting kind of the trauma of what he went through and kind of what drove him to attack Leon, the man of the group home,
Yeah,
who attacked, you know, that is kind of the kicking off point between the conflict between him and Damien and what happened in their youth. So I like that added element of not only, you know, does he feel kind of betrayed by Damien, he feels a guilt for kind of maybe creating this version of Damien. Um,
yeah.
and,
That's what my
on
point was
top
going to be
of
before.
kind of the trauma that he's been kind of hiding about what happened to him in that group home. So
Yeah,
layers of kind of emotional trauma really built up. And I like that they took a moment to not just focus on the Damien issue, but kind of his own personal trauma as well.
I've just realised when I forgot before. I was just going to tell the story as to who Leon was and how Damien ended up in prison because Adonis beat up Leon and then Damien pulled a gun and that's
Gun,
why.
and yes, and Damien got caught with the gun, arrested, and Adonis
Adonis ran away.
ran away and was able to get away. And Damien wrote letters to him and tried to keep contact with him, but he never got them because Marianne, Mama Creed, hid them because she did not want him going back to that life. She didn't trust Damien. Um,
Not
and
nice,
so
Mama Creed,
yeah,
though
so she hid
still
Damien's
friends.
letters from him. So it just seemed like, but even, you know, Damien didn't, or Adonis didn't really do anything on his part to
Nope,
even reach out to Damien.
no,
So he feels a lot of guilt about that as well. Not just the running, but the fact that he kind of just tried to forget him and forget that even happened, forget that part of his life. And then obviously, you know, it was easier for him to do that without having to see any of those letters that Damien wrote him. So I like that
yeah,
that's also kind of a part of his apology by the end of the movie, that he's very much like, I'm sorry I never reached out. I'm sorry I tried to like act like, you know, I forgot you. Um and that was kind of part of his guilt as well. So they set things up
it's a
really well. Great character moments, really great conflict. Like I said, I did want a little bit more from that, or I just wanted it to kind of stretch out a little bit longer before the fight. Really, I think the conflict was well done. I just kind of wanted it to be a little bit more stretched out before
yeah.
kind of the big fight. But well directed, great job to Michael B. Jordan. So we haven't talked much about Tessa Thompson in this movie. Getting to watch the first two films again, just kind of right before, uh, I remember kind of this great conflict with her and her whole hearing loss issues, and that kind of playing into her own kind of personal fight,
Yeah,
which kind of was something that really bonded her and Adonis. So I like that we're still getting to see her honesty in the fact that, you know, she has that really honest moment, and even Damien kind of tapping into that.
he
Um,
does.
yeah, in terms of kind of like, you know, must be difficult for you to see someone else singing your song and trying to relate to her on that level because he's kind of dealing with it. It must be hard seeing Donnie living the life that you could have lived.
Yes.
So he very much is able to tap into that feeling and kind of make her think about it. But I like that she can kind of deal with it in an honest way, whereas Donnie really can't face, you know, the things that like really stress him and hurt him. She can, you know, and she gives that him that insight. She's like, of course it's hard for me to see other people sing my songs and that I can't perform and all of these things. But I chose to, instead of kind of wallowing in it or closing myself off from those feelings, to focus on the things that I do have. And it's difficult, but I do it. So I like her kind of tapping into her own personal fight and her own personal struggles and being honest with him and making him realize that he needs to kind of be honest about his own emotions as well, and using kind of her personal thing. And loved getting to see, their daughter being deaf and them, having the sign language and all of that, and that being a real kind of incorporated thing into this movie. And great deaf representation, and uh
Oh,
and because that was,
absolutely.
yes, because I mean, in watching Creed 2 and seeing the fear of them giving her that test, and them kind of having these tears once they realized that she was probably going to be deaf, and Rocky telling him, and you see that again with Johnny in that moment where he doesn't want to think about the worst case scenario of her maybe not being able to hear, and that kind of just being a hard thing for parents, that their kid isn't perfect, and him not wanting to face that, like the doctors are telling him, there's other tests they can run, she's still young. And Rocky kind of tells him, well, what if not everything is all right? And he's like, I can't think like that, I don't want to think like that. And Rocky kind of just saying to him, if things don't go right, are you still going to love her? Of course you're still going to love her, so that's all that matters. So um I love that kind of seeing that, just, she's deaf, they've learned sign language, they're living their life and happy. And the fact that she kind of has this drive to be a fighter as well. She was really cute, and loved her relationship with him, and her kind of sneaking it and hiding it, like the fact that she wanted to fight, and him really, obviously being in support of that, and them, her in school and dealing with wanting to fight to solve her problems, and um getting that whole kind of side of their daughter's story playing into this. When you have so much other things going on, I think they worked their family dynamic story in really well, with kind of what Bianca's dealing with, what their daughter kind of, how she's developing, and all of that.
Absolutely. I think she's a wonderful, because obviously we didn't get a child in the
Yeah.
last movie, did we? We have a child now. And she's like 6, 7-ish by the
Seven-ish, I'd
seams,
say. Yeah.
by the looks of it. It's a wonderful relationship. It is a wonderful family dynamic, like you said. Speaking about Bianca, speaking about Tessa Thompson, as you said, this is what I like so much about her as a character, and what Tessa Thompson does with Bianca, is that she's just so very honest about herself. She's very, very aware of her own, not, I was going to say aware of her own mortality then, but I don't mean that.
Yeah.
I mean aware of her own situation, aware
Yeah.
of her own disability to an extent.
Yes. And where it's going to go, and how
And
far
where
it's going
it's
to
going
go.
to go.
Yeah.
And to have that dynamic with Adonis, who is a bottler, not in terms of he bottles big chances, I mean in terms of he bottles things up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He bottles things up. He does not express his emotions particularly brilliantly,
Yeah.
and she always does. She is an absolute angel for him, really. Especially given the fact Rocky's not in this movie, because I think this is
Yeah.
what has been the case with Adonis, is that he's had either Rocky telling him truths, Bianca also telling him some truths, but Bianca has taken obviously this far more central
Yeah.
role now as
And getting him to
a
face.
wife
Yeah.
of some years at this point in the
Yeah.
story, to be this entirely, and oh my god, she's a wonderful character in her own right. But as far as Adonis, Adonis's story goes, she is so valuable to him as a
Yes.
human presence that he could never do without her. He could never do without her, because he would go off the rails. He needs
That
people.
balance of her. He needs somebody who's going to be honest with him, and
yeah, but not just people who can be honest with him, but who can tell him what he needs to hear, because he has no idea what he needs to hear.
Yeah, and give him that perspective that he's missing,
Yeah,
because she's somebody who's fighting her own fight, and so he needs someone, she can relate to him on that level of kind of having this inner battle,
but
with something.
The battles we have seen her have, and to an extent that's continued in this movie, it's really, I think, bogged down to Damien tapping into a little bit of, as you said, doesn't it hurt to see someone else sing your song?
Yeah.
And she thinks about it for like 2 seconds before going, do you know what? No, not now. It's fine. I made the choice. I'm not going to, I don't want to be deaf. I don't want to lose my hearing. So this is the choice I made. I'm happy with this choice. And he doesn't exactly turn around and go, yeah, sure, Bianca, that's the choice you made. Great. He's understanding about it.
Yeah.
There's no confrontation there. It's very, very genuine and very, very human.
And he sees, he's trying to see his struggle in somebody else,
and it's not there.
That's his focused mindset is, you must be jealous. You must be seeing someone living out what you should have had. And that's kind
of not there.
That's his central focus. And so he's trying to maybe validate that by getting her to kind of admit that she feels something similar in that moment,
But she is wonderful in this movie. Again, Tessa Thompson's just doing great things. And I'll just say hi, Tessa, again. But she's great in this movie. I don't know the girl's name who plays the daughter, but she's really good as well.
She's so good. Yeah, I love her kind of watching the fight and hiding it and pretending like she's not.
It's a very, very cute relationship, like you say.
The little tea party at the beginning.
Yes. It brings
I like seeing the girl dad moments. Yeah.
It brings so much heart. It brings so much heart to this movie. And this is something that the Rocky Creed movies have always had. That this movie series has always had, is just a phenomenal amount of heart. I mean, Rocky Balboa literally built his entire career over having more heart than the guy who had more power. That was Rocky's whole thing, and it carries on. It carries on into the Creed movies, not in the same way, but in different ways, in influential ways, and I like that about them. I love that about this movie. As we spoke about before, that this final fight is, I think, the closest thing we get to Rocky versus Clubber Lang, that feels so toe-to-toe and so
head-to-head
away, rather than the Apollo and Drago fights in the Rocky movies that are just very beat Rocky down, beat Rocky down, beat Rocky down. Oh, Rocky
comes back
at you, he comes back at you, and then he ends up winning. But not Rocky One. I know it does it, doesn't it? It does it. The annoying emotional manipulation of this goddamn movie to throw the few little bars. The end of Rocky 2. The end of Rocky 2 that always makes me cry like a little girl.
Yes, I love they use the kind of Rocky themed moments really well. I think throughout the Creed movies, I think in general they've used those kind of signature Rocky score moments.
I just want. I don't think people won't know this. I can't physically watch Rocky 2 because it makes me cry.
Oh, now I have to watch
at the end of Rocky 2.
So we're doing a watch along.
the
Seriously?
emotional manipulation of Rocky 2 is unlike
It is.
anything
Yeah,
else.
it's pretty
And it's the
strong.
music, and it is the
Yeah.
music. And they threw it into this movie, and I wasn't expecting
Yeah.
them to throw it into this movie. And it got me. It got me right at the end of it. And it shouldn't have
Aw.
got me. You know what's going to happen.
You know? Yes, and the fact like I was still feeling the tension of this fight, of this back and forth, even of just him learning the truth about things and his mom kind of revealing things to him and all of that. I was just very much like, oh my gosh, what's gonna
Yeah.
happen? Oh my gosh, I don't like this. Like,
And,
like
and,
when you knew kind of what Damien did to manipulate to get that title shot, I was like, "Oh my
yes.
gosh, the fallout, with, his guy that he's been backing and his fallout with Duke for, not listening." And like I'm thinking about all of these scenarios of like what is going to happen knowing what Damien did to get this fight. And I'm like stressing about that in that moment. And
Yeah.
then at the end I'm stressing about, "Oh my gosh, this fight." And they're going face head to head and like nobody's kind of gaining any ground. Like I was feeling all of the emotions. I was
I don't
tense this whole time.
I don't even know whether it's a sports movie thing or whether it is unique to this movie series. I think there's an element to sports movies in general that have that emotional manipulation
Yeah.
of the final match, the final game, the final fight, whatever. But there is something decidingly unique about the Rocky Creed movies
Yeah.
in the way they use it. A lot of it, I think, does come down to the music and those themes from the first Rocky, from those original Bill Conti themes,
Yeah.
that are so beautiful, really, and so just the soulful almost. They sit within you
Yeah.
as
Mhm.
pieces of music. You can listen to the main Rocky theme that we all know, and it will make you want to go for a run. You could never,
Yes.
you couldn't have ran for 10 years, but it would make you want to
Want
go
to
for
do
a run
something.
down the street.
Yes. It's so and then like even by the end those kind of score moments are really inspirational and
They're
uh
beautiful.
yeah, it's like a cheer. It's like, you feel
But
that energy of the excitement of the win and everything and the emotion.
you really do. It's so great. And I did just want to give my own little bit on the style of the final fight as well. The fact that it is so different
Mhm.
stylistically to
Yeah.
every other fight we've ever seen in this movie series, because of, like you said, it's the anime influences. I'm not massively aware of that. I just viewed this as such a brilliant way of showing the focus in these two fighters.
Yeah,
And
they're not
the
thinking about anything else happening out
no,
there. It's literally just the 2 of them.
the real, it felt like an expressionist movie in that,
Yeah, like an art piece.
it
Like
took,
yeah,
yeah, it took you out of this being a movie that is generally, set in the real-ish world,
yeah,
in the real world of boxing. Um, but it completely took you out of there to this dreamscape, this kind of operatic, you know, dance between Adonis and Damien, where they're bashing each other on prison cages, prison bars,
yeah.
and fighting each other as teenagers, seeing each other in each other's corner, sat down
Yeah,
as
so,
they were when they were 16.
there's nothing
It's
in this fight but besides the 2 of them
no,
and their kind of pent up pain.
yeah,
That's
because
what
it's
they're
not
fighting,
like it's not Adonis wanting the belt or anything like that. That's not what
Yeah,
this is about. This is
yeah,
kind of, yeah, it's got to happen to stop him, to almost shut him up, but shut him up in a
yeah,
nice way, not like shut up and get out. It's
yeah,
shut up and let's have a conversation,
yeah.
which is
Shut up
is what
and
Fight Club.
listen,
Shut up
like,
and
so we can
listen.
talk. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
It's a wonderful movie.
Yes.
For Michael B. Jordan's directorial debut as well.
Yeah.
Well done, Michael B.
Very
Jordan.
well done. Yeah.
I mean, you're a great actor anyway, but more directorial movies from you. Don't become Charles Lawton, you know,
And just do
be
the
a
one.
great actor who directs one good,
One great movie. Yeah.
phenomenal movie, by the way.
Yeah.
No discredit to Michael B. Jordan, but I do think The Night of the Hunter is a far better movie than Creed 3.
Fair point.
Creed 3 is a great movie.
Yeah. I
It
really
is
enjoyed it. I
wonderful.
felt all of the things we were meant to feel. Loved seeing these characters again. Their evolution felt genuine. Loved that he brought really interesting, unique things to the fight scenes. And just great performances. Jonathan Majors, you know, Killmonger versus Kang.
Yes, and
Yeah.
I mean,
And the
here's
king and the king in there as well.
yes, I'm the king. I
Tessa
forget
Thompson is
that. I
the
don't know why I
king.
forget that. Of course she is.
Yes.
Here's one more little thing is to put what you said, or to put in relation to what you said before about wanting to see more of Damien running his mouth and all this kind of stuff. Recently, Jonathan Majors has been in a major Marvel movie where it just became his movie rather than the actual title character's movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would there have been a little bit of concern that could have just happened again if we'd have focused more on Damien?
That wouldn't be a Creed movie.
Dame.
It would just be a Dame movie. Yeah, that's fair.
Diamond Dame. It would have been called Diamond Dame.
Yes.
Which I think is a great name.
But but like I said, I think had they just played it to a sensibility of, you know, we see him saying all these things, running his mouth, but then we also get like a quiet moment of him alone, feeling a little bit pained about it, you know, and it coming from a personal pain as opposed to him really having this vitriol and hate for Adonis. It's more kind of his own personal struggle. And if we had gotten some just quiet scenes of him alone after kind of running his mouth, of him really just, you know, dealing with his own emotions and really seeing where that's stemming from. You know, I would have liked a couple scenes like that, but overall, I really felt the conflict. I was really on the edge of my seat. Even though you still are pretty sure where it's going to go, you still somehow felt the tension in that fight and, you know, edge of your seat emotion that you want to feel from a movie of this style. So, yeah.
You really did.
Great.
You really did.
Really enjoyed this movie. Yeah.
So did I. Applause for Creed 3.
Yay!
Yes.